folks, and good evening. My name is Danielle Brunak with Channel 13 News, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. So as mentioned last night, we had a very special segment for you tonight that my team and I have been working very hard over the course of the summer. So take a look at gender roles. And gender roles and gender differences have been a topic of conversation for years now, and it's something that is not only affected here on the home front, but is looked at on a global scale. The different expectations of men and women are actually very different. Here in Western culture, looking at how much money women make to a man's dollar, it is still significantly less, and even if the man and the woman are doing the same exact job. It is still women living in a man's world, and at the end of the day, women are still seen as inferior to men. Looking at something like this on a global scale, there are actually a lot of different variations between other cultures. And for example, take a look at the Himalayan culture, who practice polyandry, which is not only having multiple husbands, but it's also multiple husbands within the same family. And before I give it all away, let me transfer you to Courtney, who will give in full detail on this interesting culture.
When visiting the Himalayas, I specifically went to see the Nepalese community for an interesting reason. The Nepalese are known for their practices where brothers share a wife. This purpose is to preserve land, because in the Himalayas there isn't much land available for farming and agriculture. And families with more than one son will be faced with dividing up their land, so each son will be available to start his own family. The solution for this was to find a wife for all their sons who would live together as one family and keep their family plot. And here's some footage from my visit to the Himalayas.
It's called polyandry, one woman, several husbands. It's an unusual arrangement. Today, polyandry only persists in isolated villages in the Himalayas. When it was time for Sunita Kumari to wed, her family, like many in India, made arrangements. But they involved more than a dowry in the celebration. Sunita has not one husband, not two husbands, but three, all brothers. What must her life be like? Westerners might find the practice shocking, but for this community it works fine. One reason, sheer practicality. In the Himalayas, arable land is scarce, farms are tiny. If each generation divided each family's holdings, everyone would starve. Polyandry preserves the farm and the family's future. Unlike most men in India, husbands here handle domestic duties. They're willing to help with the cooking and childcare. In fraternal polyandry, a family picks a wife for its oldest son. The marriage can also include his younger brothers. They don't have to join in, but most do.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Looks like you had a magnificent time here and helped us gain a deeper understanding of that culture. I can't imagine having to be married to some of my brother-in-laws. Sorry, Richard. Now let's take a look at the Wadabi tribe in West Africa, who has a different approach to things.
In the Wadabi tribe of West Africa, men are known to steal each other's wives. The Wadabi's first marriage is arranged by their parents in infancy and must be between cousins. When the marriage is arranged, 2 cows and a sheep are slaughtered, and also 6 meters of cloth is given to the father of that daughter. However, each year at the yearly Jewel Festival, for 7 full days and nights, following the solar cycle, the men are opposed in a genuine ritual war. But for this war, they don't use weapons, they use song and dance. And the reason for this war is to steal women. The Wadabi men wore an elaborate makeup and costumes and dance to impress the women and hopefully steal a new wife. Here's a clip to show you what happens in the Jewel Festival.
So after seeing these short snippets, I really hope that things are put into perspective and maybe even have a greater appreciation and understanding of some of the privileges we have here in America. Now, looking at the marriages and what is practiced here in the United States, there are generally heterosexual marriages between a man and a woman, and the male gets down on one knee and proposes to his hopefully soon-to-be fiancé. But generally, this is something that is practiced here in America. Looking on a global scale, this isn't something that can be applied. to wrap everything up today, I have an exclusive interview with Natalie from Iran and Almira from China, who come from two totally different cultures. And so I'm going to bring these ladies in and let y'all see for themselves some of the practices that they do have. So ladies, tell me what a normal day for you would be like back at home. And go ahead and start, Natalie.
Sure. I did a lot of household chores. I performed chores before I was kidnapped, but now I have to do the chores plus be a housewife. So my normal day is nothing but chores and feed my family.
So you're literally taking care of everyone. You're just kind of doing a little homemaking thing.
Yes.
Oh man, I know how you feel, and it is one tough job. And how about for you, Amira? What would a typical day for you be like back at home?
I wake up very early to take tourists to my village and entertain them. It wasn't always like this. Before the tourism industry came to my village, we were able to just stay at home, take care of the house and our children. But that changed a few decades ago.
So you're able to focus on yourself more, but now that all the tourists have come, they kind of took over, and you have to almost like perform your culture in a way for them?
Yes. Now we have to wake up very, very early.
Mm-hmm. Day in and day out.
Yes. To dress in our traditional clothes, perform our traditional dances, sing our traditional songs, and it's different.
Huh, interesting. Okay, so as we have been previously discussing about what your typical marriage practices are and kind of like what you guys do and your customs and things like that, why don't you just give me a little rundown on what some of those actually are, and I'll go ahead and start with you again, Natalie.
Okay, yes. So kidnapping takes place in all parts of Iran, like in major cities and rural communities and mountain villages in the south and in the north. So the women who are taking are typically young, under the age of 25. Sometimes they are minors, like around in their teens. So we practice bride kidnapping, which is the act of taking a bride, a woman or a girl, basically against her will, through deception or force, and using physical or psychological coercion to force her to marry her adopter.
Wow, so just to clarify for everyone, when you say bride napping, are you literally being taken against your will if you are willing to go or not?
Yes.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so how about you, Omar? What are some of your general marriage practices for you back at home?
We practice Zohan, what you call walking marriages. This is where I open my door late at night for my Ashya. That is what we call the man who spent the night with. And we spend the night together, but he has to go back to his mother's house in the very next morning.
So can you have multiple Ashya?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I see what you're doing, girl. Okay, so Natalie, how about you go back and recall the day that you were bride napped and just kind of tell me how that felt and what was running through your mind and just kind of take me through that whole process.
Okay, I know I felt scared. I felt humiliated. I felt that I was nothing but property. The men who took me were actually acquaintances of my father.
So your family knew about this?
Yes. And I remember that it was evening, and the men had seen me earlier for a while, and they went to my parents and said that they wanted to marry me with someone. My parents said, no, she's still young. The men ignored that. I was in shock. I had never seen this man before, and I didn't want to marry him. I didn't like it, and I said that I don't want to live with you, and I don't know you. They said, no, this is the way with all women. Everything will be normal. I just didn't like the man they made me marry.
Interesting. Okay. So, Elmira, and being that you literally get to pick and choose your man of the evening, what would your definition of a quote-unquote perfect husband be?
Well, he has to be strong and good-looking,
Which is, I don't think we can argue with those.
and he has to be hardworking. He has to help around the village. Oh, that's another thing. I do not want to leave my village.
You want to stay where you are?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He must be willing to move there if he's not from there already.
So can you have other men come and travel from like other places to come visit you, or is it generally from like the same like town or village? I should say.
We have a lot of tourists, and they think what we do is dirty, but it's not. It's our tradition.
Yeah, it's a tradition and custom. Okay. So, speaking of that, considering tourists, like as you say, think it's dirty or it's something that I guess is seen out of their cultural norms, if you could change anything about it, would you want to, or if you could go back, would you want to do something that is a traditional practice of the United States, or would you like to try something from maybe a Chinese culture or an Iranian culture? Like, let me know what you guys think about it.
Okay, let me tell you this. There is a saying that we say, when the stone is thrown, it stays where it lands, and once you cross the threshold, you can't go back. So no, I wouldn't change anything. It is my culture and my life. A lot of women of older age, they gathered around me when I was on my own, and there were all these people around me. They were all saying, you should agree because this is right. It is according to our customs and traditions that God himself decided that it should be this way. And that moment I remember what my grandma used to say. If it happens to you this way, just let it be. It means that it must be your destiny then, and it must be the way of your happiness. And I always live by this.
Yeah. Oh, well, I really like the dedication that you have to your culture and the appreciation that you have for it. It sounds like you really do enjoy it, and I thank you for giving us a little piece of that. And so, how about you, Omar? If you had a chance to change anything, would you want to, or would you like to keep exploring your options and seeing what you can get?
I would not change anything because I like my status and I like how my people raise our families. We rely on each other. We think equality is very important.
Yeah.
This is how our society works.
It's the bread and butter to your society, which makes sense. So I just had a quick question. If you wanted to, would you be able to choose one like man of the evening, as you call it, an axia? Like, would you be able to like just choose one, or do you have to keep practicing this every single night? You know what I mean?
No, of course not. We're allowed to choose a husband.
Okay.
If we want.
Yeah.
They're not going to make us spend the
Multiple
night with like
evenings.
multiple people.
Yeah.
It's our culture. We get to choose. We will get to choose.
Get to choose. That's awesome. You sound like you have the empowerment in that culture, and I really like that. And I really thank you guys and appreciate you guys for joining me today. I know you have traveled many miles, and as just like me, I really hope that some of these folks today, as outsiders looking in, really gain a sense of appreciation for things that we do or we may not do here in America, and just something that is out of our norm. So that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you all tomorrow night.